Hello everyone, students, parents, carers. We're at the end of term one already, it seems, and I just thought I'd take this opportunity to recap the term and to look forward a little bit to what's happening around the college in term two. I want to start by thanking everybody who was able to come in for our parent-teacher interviews over the last few days. They were a terrifically important opportunity for parents and carers and students to sit down with teachers and recap where students are at. And this year, I think that's particularly important because, perhaps not surprisingly, I think as I talk with my principal colleagues around Bendigo and around the state and with teachers, we're finding that we have a lot of students with us who are probably not quite where they would normally be, either socially, emotionally and academically. And that's perhaps a hangover from what happened in 2020 with students not getting the normal school experience and also their lives in some ways being interrupted. Particularly during those periods of remote learning. So we're seeing that in a range of ways, to be honest. We're seeing, the thing that's most obvious to me is I think some students making really poor choices with their use of time, their study periods, not using those as effectively as they should. We're seeing some unusual behaviour and disrespectful behaviour at times, not so much in classrooms but sometimes out of the yard, student to student and very occasionally from student towards teacher as well, and those things always concern me. The lack of focus of some students is concerning to me, given that we're at year 11 and 12 and we're trying to push every student towards success and support them to get there. It's really important that we're working really closely together. So there's certainly more that we will do in term two, but I'd like parents and students to understand that we do expect that students are going to be appropriately focused and working really hard. We did have that one period during this term when we had a very short 5-period lockdown, or 5-day lockdown, sorry, across the state, 3 days of school lost. And that was probably a good reminder to us that even though we learnt a lot during last year, during the periods of remote learning, that announcement was still really triggering for some of our students and perhaps for some parents and some members of staff as well, but particularly for students. What I'd like you to understand is that we have a plan and we'll continue to work on that and make sure that we're ready for any future announcements of that type, whether it's a confirmed case in this school or in our community or there's any further statewide lockdown, we will be ready. And what I'd like students to understand is that it's very important that when that occurs, you know that we're ready and you have the confidence to be able to approach that experience positively. And to feel that you've got this and you can do it and we'll be there to support you. So I just want to reassure you that that's something that we are working on. There are a range of other things that will happen during term two that are also quite important in terms of supporting student learning. We have a study skills program that we're going to roll out, particularly focused on year 11 students, but some components of that will be there for year 12 students as well. We have a really important tutoring program running at the moment for a large number of our students. We have, for students doing Unit 3 and 4 subjects, we have the ongoing free access to VCE revision lectures and master classes that some of our former students are running. So there's a whole series of support there available to you, and I'd like students to be aware of that and also to be aware of how they're travelling academically. I'll touch on that again in just a moment. I do want to thank parents and students for the way in which you've supported us with our work on respectful relationships this term. We've done a number of things here. Our work around the bystander effect, students will remember from advisor meetings. You'll recall, students will remember our session that we ran on sex, consent, pornography. I want to thank those parents who came in for the information session that we ran for parents as part of that program as well. I appreciate your really positive response. I think the environment that we're in at the moment really just highlights how important that is for schools, community groups, families, and everybody, employers as well, to be working in the same direction. We know the experiences of women in Australian society, and it's important that we all focus on understanding what is right and what's wrong and doing the right thing at all times. So that's been a really interesting exercise for us. It's part of our ongoing work. We see our work in respectful relationships as being really important, and it's something that we continue to work on and continue to try and improve and to do better at. Our Year 12 students are at a really interesting and very important point in their journey. We've had a term, a slightly shorter than normal term 1 that we would get in some years, but we're at a critical point for those students in Year 12 and doing Unit 3 and 4 VCE subjects. We have a very important parent and carer information session coming up on May the 3rd here in the Alhambra Theatre, and I'd like to encourage all of our students, all of our Year 12 students. This is not for Year 11 students doing a Year 12 subject, but for Year 12 students doing Unit 3 and 4 VCE. It's important that you try to be here with your family, because we've got some really important information to share with you. That will be on May the 3rd, 7 p.m. here in the Alhambra Theatre. You'll get lots of reminders between here and now about that event. If you're in for parent-teacher interviews, you should have taken away a flyer with a little outline of that. But what we want to really talk about is success, and what success will look like for you at the end of this year. What's your pathway like? Are you headed to university? You're going to work, to apprenticeship, to TAFE? Where are you going, and what is success going to look like, and how can we help you to get there? I think it's really important that students understand where they're at in terms of their assessment and where that will get them to at the end of the year. I do have a concern always that a lot of our students, particularly given the assessment regime that's used a lot through primary and early secondary school, that a lot of our students sit comfortably around C grades and C pluses and think, I'm travelling okay. The average around the state within Unit 3 and 4 is a B standard, and if you want to do well, you need to be pushing for that and above. So it's important you understand the assessment regime. It's also important that you understand what's coming up between the beginning of term 2 and the end of the year, and on May the 3rd we'll run through that for you. We'll step out all of the dates and what we will do to support you right through that period of time, from those study skills sessions through to mid-year exams, through to the VTAC process and university applications in term 3. We'll run through all of that with you on May the 3rd, and I really do hope to see you here. We'll have a very strong focus on what parents can do and what practical advice we can give to parents to help students as well, because I know that's very important for you. My final message is that I really want you to enjoy the coming break. You've got a fraction over 2 weeks away from school. I want you to make sure that you get some study done. I want you to have a break, but I want you to make sure that you get some study done. There will be work to recap. If you've fallen behind in a couple of subjects or you've got work to catch up, that's the opportunity to do it. It's also the opportunity to do some pre-reading, to read a text, read a novel, and try and look at what's coming up for you with your studies. So use the time wisely. Please do have a break. I think that's important for us all, physically and mentally, but it's also important to make sure that you come back at the beginning of term 2 ready and raring to go, and with a very positive attitude. Thanks for your time, everybody. I look forward to seeing all of you back here at the beginning of term 2.